Okay, now how rare is it for a woman not to get anything out of a divorce, let alone kicked out of the house as well? You don't hear about it that much, and when you do, usually it's not in American courts. Let's go.
I got divorced and left with nothing. As soon as the paperwork was finalized, my ex-mother-in-law called and told me to move all my belongings out of the house. I
Woo.
never thought I'd be kicked out of my own home, a place I paid for. But for my child, I accepted it. That's right. At 35, I'm about to start a new life alone with my child. Looking back on my 10-year marriage, it was a disaster. From the moment we agreed on the divorce until we completed the process, we didn't say a single word to each other. I don't know what he was avoiding. Maybe the fear that I'd leave our child with him. Our child was born with a congenital heart defect, and when he suggested giving up on treatment, I swore I would never abandon my child. This woman also revealed that her husband had secretly racked up over 1 million yuan in debt. She was the one who filed for divorce, giving up all their assets to him and leaving herself with nothing. If his family had even once expressed interest in taking care of their child, she wouldn't feel so heartbroken. Reflecting on the past decade, she choked up as she said, I helped your parents build a house in the countryside. When your sister didn't have money for her home, I borrowed for her. I took care of everything for our two children's education. I even helped you pay off your debts. When we first got married, you said you wanted to start a business.
Okay, before we go any further, so I mean, we hear this now from a lot of YouTubers. Marriage is a business, and when homes and stuff are getting built for the in-laws and everything, it pretty much is. And that's why, have you noticed that at least here on the western in the Western world, a lot of the divorces are because of money, not because of mistresses and escorts and all that. It's usually over this and financial greed. One person wants you to spend the money the other way. This person wants to spend the money this way. And the money's just going back and forth. Oh, and let's not forget about the secret bank accounts that the spouse don't know about. Yeah, we're not going to get into that. But yeah, you get the idea.
Every time you said you had cash flow problems, I couldn't sleep at night.
Oh
I
boy.
swallowed my pride and borrowed money everywhere to support you so that you'd have no worries. And what did I get in return? The moment we walked out of the civil affairs office, it was all over. From now on, I hope I'll never suffer from love or life again. According to a report from mainland China's True Story Project, there's already been a noticeable rise in divorce cases among Gen Z. Li Hua, born in 2000, was among the first of this generation to marry. He grew up in a rural area near Bangbu, surrounded by mountains, where his family sold homegrown fruit. He met his wife at a factory, and they had two children after marriage. One day, he discovered his wife had developed an emotional connection with someone else. After a heated argument, they agreed to divorce and signed the paperwork.
It's them factory jobs, I'm telling you. I mean, what do you think happens in the Amazon warehouses? It's a bunch of hooking up in there. But nobody wants to hear it. It's like working in the Amazon warehouse. You working with the worst individuals. Some of them are convicts. Some of them are crackheads. Amazon will pretty much hire anybody. And when you get there, of course, you're going to see something that you like. And you're going to try to go somewhere with that person after work. Ah,
Sheen, also born in 2000, got married in 2020 when she had just reached the legal age for marriage. She met her husband on a social media platform earlier that year,
oh,
and they hit
shit.
it off when they met in person. Their relationship progressed quickly, meeting, dating, and getting engaged all within a year. However, their marriage lasted less than 2 years. At 22, Yushin discovered her husband had been unfaithful. After much internal struggle, she decided to divorce him. Wang Shuai, another from this generation, initiated his divorce during an argument. After the birth of their child,
In the West, they tell you that don't settle in your 20s. So these people are in their early 20s. Meaning they're barely out of high school. So they still kind of wet behind the ear and want to have fun. We want to have fun in our 20s. We don't want to be serious in our 20s. Those are our screw around years. But by the age of 28 or 29, it's time to give it up.
his idealized vision of family life gave way to endless debates about raising the baby. The young couple argued constantly, with neither side willing to compromise. Wang often resorted to silent anger, sitting next to their child while playing on his phone. 9 months after their wedding, Wang Shuai and his wife found themselves back at the Civil Affairs Office. They had already agreed on child custody at home and simply followed their appointment to collect their divorce certificate. Many netizens in China commented, "Divorce has become so common in China. Most young couples I know who got married have already divorced." At a dinner party with 6 people, only one had just gotten married. I was still single, and the other 4 were all divorced.
中国离婚率
China now has one of the highest divorce rates in the world.
Whoa.
Why? It comes down to the reasons people get married. In the past, marriages were about maintaining family status and wealth. Now, women often just show up with a few blankets and wash basins, while men are expected to buy a house, a car, and pay exorbitant dowries.
That right there. That right there. She realizes. She sees what's going on with her own eyes. Somebody please send me her IG, her WeChat. That way I can come pick her up in San Francisco. Let's go.
From the start, it's unequal. Marriages should be based on love to last. If it's about status or money, it's bound to fail.
But yet, it's considered a business. A business that's most likely going to fail if y'all both not on y'all priorities, which is money. Not, it's like, see, a lot of people marry for assets and resources, just the wrong things. When really, most people that get married, it's not for love. Sprinkle, sprinkle.
As divorce rates in China continue to rise, a surprising new industry has emerged, the business of destroying wedding photos.
What the heck?
Clients send their items via courier, and on the day of destruction, the staff opens the package. They spray paint over the wedding photos, record the process, and send the video to the client. Then the photos are shredded, and the fragments are sent to a power plant to be dissolved.
According to the Washington Post, a 32-year-old married man named Liu Wei pioneered this unique industry. In 2022, after resigning from a company in Beijing, Liu began operating a business specializing in shredding documents and destroying personal information out of a warehouse in Langfang. Initially, the business wasn't very profitable. However, in early 2023, Liu noticed a demand in the market and turned it into an opportunity. Due to strict urban waste sorting regulations, people couldn't casually discard wedding photos, especially since they involved privacy concerns. Many clients faced the problem of disposing framed wedding photos. In a promotional video, Liu said, "Send your photos to me, and we'll make them disappear completely, as if they never existed." The video received over 1 million views, and his business quickly gained traction. Clients simply send their photos to Liu, and his team handles the destruction through professional processes, ensuring the protection of their privacy. For materials like tempered glass or wood that cannot be shredded, they use sledgehammers to smash them.
I mean, most people don't even get those type of photos framed like that to where they can't take it out. In other words, most people that just have the regular frame and the picture, they could just take in and out. They could just burn it in the fireplace. I mean, I'm not hating on this guy's business, but good for him. It's different.
Fragments are then sent to a power plant to be processed as biofuel. The entire process is recorded and shared with clients for verification. Reports indicate that around 80% of Liu's clients are women who mail their wedding photos from all over China.
They keep telling you 80% of women initiate divorce. And now, well, they're getting rid of the photos too. They're getting rid of the evidence. Another 80%.
Seeking a way to make a clean break from the past. Over the past 9 months, Liu's team has destroyed nearly 450 sets of wedding photos. Currently, photo destruction accounts for over 95% of his business, with wedding photos making up 80% of that. Moreover, Liu has no shortage of potential clients. In the first half of this year alone, 1.27 million couples registered for divorce in China. The current state of youth marriages in China shows a rising divorce rate and a declining marriage rate. To combat low birth rates, the Chinese government has introduced various measures to encourage young people to marry and have children. However, these efforts have yet to yield significant results.
南方里空空荡荡。
Maternity wards are empty, and the front doors of marriage registration offices are deserted. Nowadays, young people in China are not only avoiding having children, but are also choosing not to get married. Marriage in China has become a major financial burden. Take Guangzhou as an example. The median monthly salary in Guangzhou is 4,811 yuan, which means half the population earns less than 5,000 yuan. If someone saves every penny for a year, they would only have about 50,000 yuan. But how much does a wedding cost? Data shows that the average cost of a wedding in China is 330,000 yuan, which would take nearly 7 years of saving without any expenses.
You hear that? So basically, people, or should I say men, have to use their life savings for a marriage. They have to pay for a dowry, the bride fee. They have to have a car and a house. But I'm noticing the women are never saying what kind of car he has to have. Do I have to have a Honda Civic or do I have to have a 3 Series? Somebody let me know in the comment section.
And this doesn't even include the cost of a house, a car, or bride
shit.
price. For most people in China, getting married can lead to financial collapse. So, what would you choose? According to the latest data from the Ministry of Civil Affairs, the number of registered marriages in the first 9 months of 2024 decreased by 943,000 couples compared to the same period last year. In the first half of 2024, marriage registrations were only about half of the 6.94 million couples registered during the same period in 2014, hitting a 10-year low. Demographer He Yafu estimates that the total number of registered marriages in 2024 will be around 6.6 million couples, the lowest since 1980. The ongoing economic instability in China, coupled with rising living costs, has led young people to delay their marriage plans. This trend has further impacted China's population policies. The weak economy has increased unemployment rates, and many local governments have cut public sector jobs. This has significantly reduced the number of ideal marriage candidates, such as government workers and public institution employees, contributing to the declining marriage rate. Beyond economic issues, analysts point out that China has not addressed gender equality. Problems like exorbitant bride prices and the expectation to buy property as a ticket to marriage have made it even harder for young people to tie the knot. Even with government efforts to encourage...
I mean, that's an argument right there if you think about it. You need a house, not an apartment. See, out here in the West, a lot of couples marry while they live in an apartment. Or they don't have anything at all. Some even get married when both are still living with their parents. Both the man and woman are still living with family, separate. And they decide to get married and then get a house. But basically, you got to be a made man in China to even walk down the aisle. That's pretty much what they're saying. And basically, that's the 1% man, or should I say, the guys in the top 5%, because most young guys in their, mid 20s to 30s don't have it like that, or even have a job that's good enough to even pay for all that. So they got some serious work to do if it's going to be like that. Because in America, we don't have bride prices, but we have other entitlement that's just as toxic.
marriage, the trend is difficult to reverse. According to a report by Voice of America, Tan Earn-Sir, a senior research fellow at the Institute of Policy Studies in Singapore, noted that financial stability and assets have become unavoidable barriers for Chinese men seeking marriage. Tan explained that marriage-age women, especially in cities, are more likely to consider marriage only if potential partners have sufficient financial resources, such as a good job and a home for starting a family.
What is a good job? Jobs don't care about people, which means, look at the massive layoffs that are announced worldwide almost every day. So what if you had just got married and everything? You met the girl, the woman's requirements and everything, and you found out next week in the email that your job no longer needs you. So does that mean that your wife is going to divorce you because you lost your job? I don't know how that works out there in China, but in the West, it's common for most guys to go through a divorce because they lost their job. So he ends up losing whatever he started with this woman, all because of a job loss. Mind you, when one door closes, another one opens. So sometimes that's the best thing that happened to somebody, losing their job. Sometimes that's a come up for some people, but most women aren't going to stick around for your come up. So that's one thing to consider too.
With many young men unable to meet both criteria or lacking parental support to buy property, the number of marriages is expected to decline.
And that's another thing. For guys that do have homes and cars, stuff to bring to the table to bring a woman in and wife up, a lot of times these are properties that their parents help get to them. Like these are assets that were passed down to them. Not necessarily trust fund babies, but just in general. Let's say you grew up in a certain home. You grew up in a wonderful 4-bedroom home, 2-3 car garage in the suburbs. Well, you lived in that house your whole life until you moved out of college. You came back, your parents aged, your parents feel like the home is too big for them now. You and your siblings are all adults, so they want to downgrade to like a townhome, a 2-bedroom townhouse. And they want to give you the home for you to start the next generation. That's how it should be. But a lot of people in this generation are unable to do that because most people have to build from the bottom and basically build their own legacy because, everything's expensive.
Tan also suggested that foreign spouses might become an option for young Chinese people unable to find suitable partners domestically. Men might look for spouses from developing countries, while educated women might seek wealthier foreign partners. In Shenzhen, Mr. Wu shared with Voice of America that young men in his city face unrealistically high standards for marriage. One of the biggest burdens, he said, is the rising cost of bride prices due to inflation in recent years. Mr. Wu mentioned that Jiangxi province is widely recognized for having the highest bride price expectations, while Sichuan and Guangdong are slightly lower. What's shocking is that even families with average or low incomes, including rural households, often demand tens of thousands of yuan. He added that this practice, which he described as akin to auctioning off daughters, hasn't diminished despite China's economic downturn and declining marriage rates in recent years. He said, the bar for marriage has become extremely high. You need a house, a car, and a significant...
Take a look at that art. That says a lot. The princess is sitting pretty while the people at the bottom are struggling, kissing her ass. And that's pretty much what's going on in the world. A lot of people are kissing ass just to make one person happy. Not just in the workplace, but in the home too as well. That says a lot.
Bride price to marry someone's daughter. The costs are outrageous. Many people around me, especially those from lower income groups, have simply given up. On the other hand, the Chinese government has made continuous amendments to the marriage law in recent years, reducing protections for women in areas like property division and divorce rights. According to Shang Guangluan, a writer originally from Sichuan province and now living in...
I don't see no filters. The one on the left, send her out. Send me the IG. I'll pick her up in San Francisco too.
Taiwan. This has also contributed to women's growing reluctance to marry. She explained that under the current laws, a housewife who gets divorced could be left with nothing.
Whoa.
Speaking to Voice of America, Shangguan said, today, Chinese women are becoming more independent and less bound by traditional views on marriage and childbearing.
Well, what do you think is going on in America? Women are more independent and they can make their own money. Sometimes they can even make more money than men, but usually these women spend more money than men too, so there's limits to it. So, but here's the thing though. Women that get divorced in America, it'll benefit them more and they're not going to be left in the dark. That's the difference versus over there in China. The women that get divorced will still end up with nothing versus in America, it's a small chance of that happening, but it still happens.
This is closely tied to economic factors. Many women have done the math and realize that marriage and childbirth are not worth the cost to them, so they're forced to become independent.
But wait a minute. I've never heard a woman say that though. Marriage and childbirth are not worth it to the cost to them. But see, that's why they're looking for top tier men in the top 5%. So then they don't have to focus on the financial factors of children and raising a family. They sit pretty while the man make all the money. But the problem with that is the man is usually going to have side chicks if he's not at home and he's out on business trips closing the deals and stuff. These are not 9 to 5 men. These men work harder than 9 to 5 Monday through Friday people. So these men don't really have a lot of time to spend with family to begin with because they're trying to close on deals.
Why do Chinese women resist pressure to marry and have children? This also has much to do with the country's social system. Lulu, originally from Gansu and recently immigrated to Canada, shared her experience. She said, "Back in China, I absolutely didn't want to have children because the pressure was just too overwhelming. But now my perspective has changed, and I'm open to having kids. I think it's partly cultural. I can't say my current partner is perfect."
And see, nothing. Never mind. I'm not gonna get into it. Y'all too soft.
"But at least he won't just leave everything to me like many men in my hometown. Most importantly, this is a free society. The social system here, at least for the next 10 or 20 years, seems stable enough, so I feel it's possible to have children." At age 33, Lulu once held a respectable office job in Beijing, but decided to pursue studies in Canada after a few years. She stayed after graduation, met her current husband, and recently got married. She plans to apply for citizenship in the future. Lulu admitted that before moving abroad, having children was never an option for her because she felt like she was treated like a blade of grass. She said, "They don't water you, don't fertilize you, and block the sunlight. Then they ask, 'Why aren't you growing?'" When talking about the status of women in China, Lulu grew emotional. She said, "A woman's womb has never truly belonged to her. When there were too many people, they forced sterilizations to stop you from having kids. Now that the population is shrinking, when they first lifted the two-child policy, all those old family planning ads suddenly transformed into cheerful family of four campaigns. I find it absurd and ridiculous." Although Lulu lived in Beijing for many years, she believes her hometown better represents the typical social environment in China. Places like Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou are exceptions. She always wanted to escape her hometown, as far away as possible. She said, "In my hometown, the core values are about what others think and how others see you."
Okay, example. Do not move back to your hometown. Don't go back to old relationships and don't go back to an old job. I'm saw like 2 or 3 different videos yesterday with different YouTubers saying that. I'm like, you know what? It has a point. Like, it stunts your growth. You left for a reason. This woman left her hometown to grow. She moved to Canada so then she could grow. It's like a whole new world. So she just decided to get married and have a kid. Yeah, it happens. Once you move out of your hometown, your views change. It's like when you travel the world, you just have this new burst of life, like a new soul, like a newfound soul.
But this scrutiny is only directed at girls. Boys are given much more tolerance. As long as a man doesn't do drugs, he's considered a good guy. But if a girl wears a slightly shorter skirt, she'll be criticized.
Wow.
Lulu told Voice of America that women in her hometown still don't receive the respect they deserve in society, especially with the intense pressure to marry and have children. Even highly educated women aren't spared from this pressure. She has several female friends who, after being pressured by their families, married and had children with men they didn't know well. Some of them later discovered their husbands were unfaithful, but stayed in the marriage for the sake of their children. Lulu said, "These marriages often lack a foundation of love. Both sides are usually pressured by their parents, and if they find each other somewhat acceptable, they rush into marriage."
And see, the same thing. In the West, a lot of people stay in bad marriages for the children's sake. They don't want their children to hate them, nor can they afford to divorce in the first place. Most people can't afford a divorce. I mean, they can, but they don't want to go back to living in apartments and shit. You get that? So why would I give up this 5-bedroom house, 3-car garage with a truck, a BMW, and a Toyota Camry just to go back to a 1-bedroom shack and live a mediocre lifestyle. It's like a downgrade. Nobody wants to downgrade. We want to upgrade. We started from the bottom, we're in the middle, and we're trying to get to the top. I'm only in the middle, and I'm going to be back down at the bottom if I get divorced because it's going to financially break me. And that's why a lot of people stay in the marriages.
But living with someone day in and day out is completely different from just finding them agreeable at first glance. The outspoken feminists we see online are only a small group. A lot of women, especially in rural areas like my hometown, even those with high levels of education, still can't escape cultural oppression and their disadvantaged position. However,
but the thing is, as men, we do not care about her education nor job title. As long as she's striving to be the best she can be. What does a job title mean? Okay, let's say you work, I don't know, let's say you're a police officer and you met this nice doctor or psychologist, whatever. Whatever she's doing, it's better than what you're doing. I'm just an electrician, or you're an electrician. So we're in completely different job fields. I'm basically in construction because I'm an electrician, and you're in the medical healthcare. Two completely different worlds. So, I mean, opposites attract, right? But when it comes down to money, I'm not with her because she's a doctor and I'll live this great life if I married her. I married her for her. I don't care about her job title because I know we can still grow together. I'm not looking for a mother. I'm looking for a wife. Meaning I don't want her spending all her money on me just because I only make $80,000 a year and she makes $250,000 a year. You get it? Good.
However, Lulu has also noticed that more women are now refusing to get married or have children. Even in her conservative hometown, there are women in their 30s or 40s who are still single. She said, the pressure doesn't work anymore.
Well, I got 3 flavors to choose from. IGs, please. Passports, please. To SFO they go. I'll be there in about 45 minutes. Depends on the traffic.
Because
matter of fact, we just wrap it up right here. A bunch of this video is just a bunch of yap. Too much talking. And that's the problem in the world today. People just talk too damn much. But it's not necessarily a problem depending on who it is. Anyway, this is Kai Vale. I had fun with this video. I hope you did too as you watched it. Peace.
Thank you.